a shot every single time I say the house in the cerulean sea.
As you may know, The House in the Cerulean Sea, also by TJ Klune, is an extremely popular, heartwarming, fuzzy, sweet hug of a book. It is absolutely everywhere. It is all over BookTube, and I already reviewed it. I'm going to link it above. I gave it a 3-star. I really enjoyed it, but it just wasn't my cup of tea. To my surprise, I requested the arc for Under the Whispering Door, and I was miraculously approved. So I decided to give this a shot. It seems more of my genre, and it seems a little less sweet, which is something that I definitely had a problem with The House in the Cerulean Sea. I'm very surprised with how popular The House in the Cerulean Sea was that I have not even heard of this book. I'm pretty sure I just saw it on Goodreads and then I ended up requesting on NetGalley, and I'm just really shocked that I have not heard more about this book. So I'm gonna fill you in. I'm gonna let you know if it's worth the time. For me, already just from the synopsis, I feel like this is gonna be a better book for me because The House in the Cerulean Sea was a little more fantastical, and I guess, you know, death and crossing over can be a little fantastical, but it's more rooted, I think, in reality for me to be able to enjoy this better. So Under the Whispering Door has a slightly different premise than The House in the Cerulean Sea, and here we are following Wallace Price, who is a hotshot lawyer, and he ends up dying and wakes up at his own funeral and then is taken by a reaper to go to the afterlife, but instead of going straight into the afterlife, he is taken to a quaint little tea shop run by a man named Hugo, and he is the ferryman, and he is the man who will help him cross over through the Whispering Door. But Wallace ends up falling in love with Hugo, and the story takes off from there. So it obviously has a couple of the same premises as The House of the Cerulean Sea. We obviously have a queer love story, which I enjoy, and falling in love, and we're taking kind of a grumpy, stuck in their ways character, and we're meeting a wise, thoughtful, loving, caring human being. As such, I am still very surprised. I've heard absolutely nothing about this book. I wonder if it's gonna be a book of the month choice. I'm not really sure. But you're gonna be seeing this on September 21st, which is the day that this releases. So it's nighttime for me, and I'm exhausted, and I'm gonna go to bed, and then I'm gonna give you some updates on this tomorrow and see how far I can get. Okay, so I'm on chapter 13, which is 52% of the way into the novel, and I think this novel has the same issues that The House in the Cerulean Sea had, and that is, I really love the beginning. The beginning of this is fresh. Like, the beginning of this novel is like 5 stars. It is hilarious, it is comical, it is depressing, it is bittersweet, and it's just like overall very entertaining to see this character navigate this new world. The best part of this book, hands down, is the beginning when his reaper, whose name is Mei Ying, she finds him at his own funeral, and then she like kind of walks him through the process that he's dead. It totally reminded me of like, she was like a mix of like Janet from The Good Place along with Aquafina. Like, those two people together is Mei Ying, and she goes by Mei, and she just cracks me up. I'm aboard the Mei train. She is one of my favorite characters, and I absolutely love her so much in the beginning. Like, she is just top tier. And then our main character, Wallace, is stuck in this tea shop, and he meets the ferryman, who is Hugo, and Hugo is the guy who can help him cross over to the Whispering Door, basically. And the door is actually on the ceiling, which is just kind of like an interesting concept. But basically, like, he's the ferryman, and like there's like a tether or like a fish line in each person like he watches over, so they can't like float up, because if they unhook them, then they can like float in the door, basically. I don't know. I'm really digging the dead vibes of this novel, and I just love stuff that's kind of like bittersweet like this, and that's kind of what I was missing from The House in the Cerulean Sea. Was I really needed something that was not super happy all the time. I needed something that was a little sad or dark or like a little depressing, and I feel like this book definitely accomplishes that. But the issue I'm having is that this book is almost like the same book. Like, our main character, Wallace, he's literally Linus from The House in the Cerulean Sea. And then Hugo is just like Arthur. And instead of taking care of a bunch of children, he takes care of any soul who comes into his tea shop that's dead. And I just feel like there's this same pattern. And then, when I really thought about it, Mei Ying reminds me a bit of like the tree sprite in The House in the Cerulean Sea. And I'm just like thinking about it, and I just feel like they're so similar. It's like he almost felt like the same formula for this book. He just added in a totally totally different concept, a concept that I prefer, which is why I think I've enjoyed this a lot more than The House on the Cerulean Sea. I feel like I just like the concept of death. I think it's something that I enjoy in my novels. I know that it's kind of more dark for certain people, but for me, I just feel like it's something that I needed to go with this type of novel, I suppose, from him. And I'm also having the same problem where like Wallace was like so bad and such an asshole, and then all of a sudden he's like good overnight, and we're being told this by all the characters, like, oh, you've changed, you're so good now. And I'm like what really like started that change? Like I just didn't really see the progression. I feel like it just went from like good to bad overnight. And I just also prefer gray characters. I don't always want someone who's super good all the time, you know what I mean? I just feel like I want a little more gray. I mean, I feel like I would rate this higher than The House on the Cerulean Sea just because I like the concept so much more, and I love like the way that this works, like the way the death system kind of works. I feel like it's really brilliant, and I love that, and it just kind of works. Again, the problem is this is a very character-driven novel, and the characters are not fleshed out enough for me. I don't know, and there's not a whole lot of plot, and I feel like the synopsis honestly kind of spoils half of the novel. So I don't know how I'm feeling. I'm gonna touch base with you when I'm done with this, because so far it's been really great, but like now it's kind of going into that like the problem I had with his original book, which is just kind of gets like lame in the middle, and there's like not a whole lot. There's a lot of like character development and a lot of like dialogue and conversations and like heavy metaphors and like too on the nose of metaphors, and I just don't really feel like the story's actually progressing. I don't know, so we'll see. I'm gonna come back to you when I feel like it, and let's go from there. So I ended up finishing this book, and I'm really conflicted on how I feel about it. I definitely feel like I enjoyed this a little bit more than The House on the Cerulean Sea. I feel like for me, it was a little bit of a better book, but in the same ways, it felt like almost the exact same novel. For a character-driven novel, I feel like I don't really even know these characters after I just finished this book. Like, I feel like I barely know them. I don't even know what makes them tick. And again, with the love interest thing between Wallace and Hugo, why do they love each other so much? Like, I need a little bit of description. I need a little bit of love. Like, I need something that gives me something to go on. I just feel like their relationship, a lot like Linus and Arthur's, like came out of nowhere. Even though I knew it was supposed to happen, like I just didn't feel the romance. I never felt the romance. I don't understand why they love each other. There's no reasoning behind these things, and I just feel like we don't get enough of their personalities to really understand why. I mean, to me, like one of the most fleshed out characters were the side characters, and to me the side characters, they're still pretty involved. I would say May and Nelson. Nelson is Hugo's grandfather, and he is just awesome. Like, I just love him, but at the same time, like, I really wish I knew more about these characters. I just don't. There was like the beginning of a good character-driven novel, and it just did not live up to what I wanted. And again, this novel tried way too hard to be profound. I feel like, you know, obviously it's about how we come to grips with death and how we deal with life and what we expect out of life and expect out of death, and it just didn't really add anything new to like the death perspective either. Like, it just didn't really add a whole lot of new stuff for me. Again, I'm conflicted because I also really enjoy, especially the beginning of this novel, I love some of the humor in the beginning, and it almost just feels like someone else wrote the ending, or maybe someone else wrote the beginning and then the middle was TJ Klune. And the ending to me was just not as satisfying as I was hoping. Like, I was kind of expecting that ending, and I didn't really want that ending. I kind of wanted a different ending, and it just didn't really give that to me. I feel like I'm just not giving you a whole lot to go off of right now, but again, I'm also just very conflicted. Like, I really love this concept and this theme. I like this like magical death world where people can go to the tea shop. I love the location of this. I think, you know, the tea shop was such a great idea, and whenever like a newly dead person comes, like Hugo makes them a tea that reminds them of their life, like one of their best memories. And that made me like tear up. You know, like there's so many moments in this that like I teared up. TJ Klune made me cry. He made me cry, and I can appreciate that. And it made me, you know, feel, but it wasn't for really the main characters. It was me picturing myself in these decisions. And literally, like, if I died and went to this tea shop, I can tell you exactly what tea he would serve. And I love that. I love this world. I love the world that TJ Klune created in this, but like the characters and the storyline and the plot, like, just did not really work for me at all the time. Like, especially from like the 50% mark to like the 80% mark, like I really struggled with this. I felt like it was really boring and repetitive, and I didn't know why they were doing the certain things they were doing. I just didn't really understand the motive, which is for me something I need for my characters. I've really discovered over the last couple of months is I need motives for my characters to do something. Why are they doing this? Show me the receipts. So those are kind of my final thoughts on the novel. I really don't know what I'm gonna rate it yet. I feel like it's definitely a little bit of a higher rating than The House in the Cerulean Sea. This is a difficult decision in terms of rating because I feel like it's definitely a little bit better. But I think it's also just the concept. Like, are the characters really that much better? I don't know. I think it stuck with me a lot more because it dealt with death, which made me think about my own life and my own family, my own experiences. And I really did enjoy like May and Nelson. Like, they were like my shining stars in this. Hugo and Wallace I could give two shits about, to be honest. But I just also love this like magical tea shop vibe. So I feel like I'm gonna rate it a little bit higher, but I don't really know if it's enough to even warrant a full 4 stars with how many frustrations I still have with the novel. I feel like this is like a 3.75 maybe, but I don't know. I feel like a 3.75 feels like a very respectful rating because I'm still gonna round up to 4 stars. I do think it's worth your time. I do think you might enjoy this, especially if you liked The House in the Cerulean Sea. Take a shot. I think that you'll actually enjoy this because it's kind of the same story, but just told with a totally different concept. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. And if you have any more suggestions for books I should read down below, go ahead and let me know. And like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye!